Welcome to Random Reactions, a show where I discuss articles I've read over the past week and give my reactions to them. On this episode, I discuss articles about what a cold IPA is, how artists are upset at Bandcamp for selling to Epic Games, and the crazy NFL news about a Russell Wilson trade. I also read about what the top sci-fi books are in 2022, and that makes me revisit the NorEastCon 4 or the 62nd World Science Fiction Convention. I had a semi-finalist sci-fi slash cosmic horror story that I wrote for a contest in high school. And yes, I will read you the intro right here on this show. Let's get random. Starting with my rundown, I came across a story this week called Is the Cold IPA the Next Frontier of the Hazy IPA? Written by Zach Gabel on vinepair.com. Gabel explains the crazy path of the IPA in the United States and how it went from who can make the most bitter beer to who can make a soft, creamy, fruity, hoppy beer. I remember when the IPA first had a big craze, a big boom. At one point, I literally tried a Sam Adams beer that had 6 pounds of hops in the beer. Needless to say, it was overkill. Bitterness is easily achieved. Hops are very expensive, and the flavor can be completely masked with the bitterness. So now you see more citrusy, hoppy beers or session IPAs that have less alcohol and more aroma. The article goes on to say that Kevin Davey of Wayfinder Beer in Portland, Oregon, decided to use his lager brewing experience to make what he calls the cold IPA. Davey says in the article that the point was to highlight the actual hop flavor and not the fruity esters of ale yeasts, and the lager yeast helps achieve this. While lagers are fermented at lower temperatures, the cold IPA is fermented a little warmer but still much cooler than what most ale yeasts need to be fermented at. While an IPL exists, or what is called an India Pale Lager, this new cold IPA is made a little different. That's why Davey believes it's a brand new style, though apparently some beer drinkers think it's just another version of an IPL. I guess it's up to your thoughts. Another difference in this cold IPA is that they use adjuncts like rice or corn to supplement the barley, a very American thing there, that makes the beer rich in texture but also very dry. Davey first did this in 2017, and now there are some other breweries on the West Coast that love the style and have also made their version of this new cold IPA. The point of the article is whether beer drinkers are fatigued from hazy IPAs being such a boom right now. And that does happen. I remember when Citra was a hop everyone used, and it was literally in every hoppy beer. I avoid those beers now because, to be honest, it's pretty boring. I also remember the hoppy bitterness craze, like I was talking about before. I mean, who could make the most bitter flavor with hops? That's what everybody tried to do. Well, that died out as well. So if this cold IPA is really a new, unique style that spreads east, I can absolutely see it being the new craze. At the very least, I really want to try one right now. Moving on to the world of music, in an article titled Did the Best Music Streaming Platform Just Sell Out? Epic Games and Bandcamp Make Strange Bedfellows, and this one was written by Nitish Pawa on Slate.com. We learn about a very odd thing that has happened to artists. I also use Bandcamp, of course, for both my music projects, my solo albums under the name Super Garlic vs. Funky Onion, and my collaboration with friend Jerry Brady under the name Dr. Alio. So the news definitely was something I was reading about and definitely was concerned about. For those that don't know, Epic Games is famous for the creation of Fortnite, a PvP game that blew up and has a bit of a cult following, which includes baseball players playing it on the big screen at stadiums on days off. Apparently, on March 3rd, the deal was announced, and Epic wrote that, quote, Bandcamp will play an important role in Epic's vision to build a creator marketplace ecosystem for content, technology, games, art, music, and more, end quote. Of course, Bandcamp will remain as a separate entity in the deal, and CEO Ethan Diamond will remain as the CEO. Diamond said that this will add more resources to labels, artists, and fans, but the truth is that Bandcamp was acquired by Epic Games. This isn't really a partnership. And details are actually a little bit on the hush hush. They really didn't release what the details were. Some artists believe that Epic did this to get the Bandcamp data for its use, including the Mountain Goats' John Darnell, and music historian Ted Gia wrote that history suggests that acquisitions like this usually end with the acquired company going under because decisions are made specifically for the parent company. He also added the chance of failure is much higher if the acquired company is in a completely different industry, as in this case. All of that, of course, is terrible news. I have several albums hosted on the site, and of course, it's free for artists to do that. Most other sites force you to pay to host music, and the cut of revenue Bandcamp takes is also lower than many other sites as well. And while Bandcamp was, essentially revered through the years, now people are calling the company a sellout, especially with Epic Games having alleged bad treatment of employees and an overall alleged bad culture. And there is a concern that Epic will begin to use music on Bandcamp without paying the artists. So while there are some optimists out there, the future seems very bleak for the future of Bandcamp as we have known it. So I guess I'm going to have to start to make plans for what's next for my albums and where I'm going to put them. It's a very sad thing, and I hope I could be an optimist about it, but at the moment it doesn't look good. Onto the sports world now. We had some crazy NFL news this past week with Seattle Seahawks trading Super Bowl winning and former Wisconsin Badgers quarterback Russell Wilson to the Denver Broncos. In an article called Russell Wilson Traded to the Broncos, Seahawks agree to blockbuster move to trade superstar pending QB's approval, written by Patrick Walker on CBSSports.com. We get the details of this deal. The Broncos are giving up 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, and a 5th-round pick in the draft. The Broncos do get a 4th-round pick, but they also have to send tight end Noah Fant, quarterback Drew Lock, and defensive lineman Shelby Harris to the Seahawks in this deal. Multiple things to discuss here, of course. One, the Broncos obviously made a very quick move after the news that Aaron Rodgers signed a 4-year, $200 million deal to remain the quarterback with Green Bay, making the back-to-back MVP the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. Wilson is another top-tier talent, of course, with a Super Bowl already on his resume, and when healthy, Wilson is a dynamic player with his legs as well as his arm. And when Russell Wilson was doing his best, he had a solid running game, something that was inconsistent at times on Seattle's team the last couple of years. In Denver, he'll have Javonte Williams and possibly a Badgers reunion with Melvin Gordon, though Gordon was only a freshman when Wilson played at Wisconsin, and he didn't really factor into the success in that particular season in 2011. Regardless of Gordon, Williams is expected to take a big leap next season and really plays into Wilson's play action ability to make deep throws. And he will have solid wide receivers to throw to in Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, and Tim Patrick, plus any other weapons they draft or sign for Wilson. One of the biggest problems for Wilson in Seattle was the offensive line. The Seahawks ranked 25th in the league with an average Pro Football Focus rating of 65.78. That's very low. That had Wilson literally running for his life all the time, and it's why he's been injured the last couple of years, and missing multiple games last year. Denver is an upgrade at the offensive line, but they will probably have to bolster it a little bit more to help Wilson out. Denver was ranked 19 last year with a PFF average of 70.2 on their line. An upgrade at center would do wonders to them. The guards can also use some improvement as well. And the Broncos offensive line will need to essentially be more consistent. They allowed 28 sacks last season, but they also only allowed 165 total pressures. It is noted that the sacks might have more to do with Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater, though, so it'll be interesting to see. Overall, I see the Broncos being a much better and they'll probably pass Las Vegas and push the Los Angeles Chargers. Wilson might be enough to get the Broncos into the playoffs, but the AFC West is brutal. Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs will be favorites to win again. Justin Herbert and the Chargers should be better. Las Vegas still has the very capable Derek Carr, so they'll be a headache for teams to face. It's not like the Las Vegas is going to go 3-14 or something. And then also in the AFC, you have a Baltimore team that will be healthier with Lamar Jackson, a Cincinnati team with Joe Burrow, who just brought them to the Super Bowl for the first time in forever, a Buffalo team with Josh Allen, a New England team with Mac Jones. I mean, overall, it is not an easy road to get into the playoffs in the AFC, but the Broncos will have its best chance in years because they signed Russell Wilson. Shifting from sports now, I move on to my top story this week, and it's science fiction related. In an article titled Best Sci-Fi Books of 2022, written by Jeff Spry on space.com, we learn of some books to possibly pick up and read. From new books like The Simulated Multiverse by Rizwan Virk, where the MIT computer scientist discusses topics like parallel universes, alternate simulated realities, infinite timelines, and the Mandela effect. It also had classics on there like H.P. Lovecraft's At the Mountains of Madness, with a new hardcover release with illustrations by French illustrator Francois Béranger. There are a lot of books on the list that might be interesting to check out as well. Some classics were on this list in this article, hoping to bolster people who maybe didn't read some of these, including Ray Bradbury's The Martian Chronicles from 1951, which explores a Mars settlement through short stories that are loosely connected. Also on the list is a classic from 1985, a very good year, written by Orson Scott Card called Ender's Game. The book followed Ender Wiggin as he fights an alien race that almost killed off all humans in the past. So whether it is new books or classics you might not have read yet, this list has some great selections. And if you're looking to bolster your library, I recommend reading it. And of course, it was fun to see the cosmic horror genre tied into many of these sci-fi books as well. And that got me thinking about my short story that I wrote for the 62nd annual World Science Fiction Convention when I was in high school, actually becoming a semifinalist in the contest as one of the top 27 stories out of thousands. I still love this accomplishment. I'm very proud of it, even though I didn't make it as one of the 7 finalists. I actually wrote the introduction first as it was a part of a creative writing assignment, and I still have the copy of that part of the story here, right here. We were then given the option to complete the short story and submit it into the contest, which I did. The story itself mostly takes place in the far future. The Earth is now one united colony, and there are space colonies as well throughout the universe. A new expedition is launched to study an unknown quadrant of space to map it out and find other possible planets for settlements. The chosen crew reach a planet that has a gravitational force that is so extreme that it pulls the ship down to the planet's surface, causing it to crash. Little does the crew know that there are other inhabitants on this planet already. Members of a ship from the past that came on a secret government mission and also crashed on the planet. The planet changed the crew, though, made them evolve and age incredibly slow, changed their eating habits. Wink, wink. And of course, like I said before, what I have here is the introduction to the story, which is about the crew from around our time when they first get to the planet before that initial crash. And I want to read it to you here for fun. Perhaps I will find the rest of the story later at a later date and we'll continue it, but this beginning creates the setting for the rest of that story. And I'm very excited to read this to you right now. The cannibalistic mind of the new civilization. What's crazy about this is it still has the old notes in my grade from the teacher. You can check that out right there. Check that out. I got an A on this assignment. And I did edit some of it. So some of it in the later version that I submitted is a little different from this, but I will just read from this one so you can see what an A as a senior in high school looks like. It's pretty cool. But here we go. The Cannibalistic Mind of the New Civilization, written by Anthony Iozzo. November 29th, 1954. So, secret government mission's already pretty intense. The universe was a black canopy with tiny holes punched of stars and planets. A red, white, and blue ship drifted in the Penarian galaxy. This galaxy was 60,000 light years away from Earth. This was the ship of Captain Jonas Williams. He had joined the secret government branch of Conquer and Inhabit. Started by President Truman, the secret government used the technology learned from the spaceship crash at Area 51 to create spaceships of their own. The United States would now have a project. A special crew would be decided to go out in the first spacecraft ever created, the new civilization. Jonas Williams, the general of the Special Operations Branch of World War II, was chosen to head the crew. The other members would be his choice, and after a long study, 4 more crew members were chosen: Lieutenant Tanya Bell, Private Marshal Pell, Engineer Marcus Bronze, and Nurse Pamela Strachey. They were sleeping in their rooms as their ship pulled up to an unknown planet. The planet was glowing blue and green. It had been 5 years since they first embarked on a ship capable of going the speed of light, and their assignment to make discoveries on life on another planet. A red blinking light came on in the darkness as the alarm sounds. Captain Williams leapt out of bed. He was wearing a silver spacesuit with black boots. "Mainframe," he said, looking up at the ceiling. "Lights on!" The lights came on and the alarm shut off. Jonas stretched his arms. He had long black hair, his eyes were green, and his skin was pale. Pale skin was what every member of the ship had. They were running low on food and their skin lacked oxygen. Jonas walked over to a silver door. He pressed a button to its left and the door opened almost simultaneously. The hallway was quite small. Jonas, who was a 5'5" and 138-pound man, filled up the hallway as if he was a giant. He actually had to duck or his head would hit the ceiling. 5 doors, 3 on the right and 2 on Jonas's side, were in the little hallway. Jonas entered Lieutenant Bell's room, which was next to his. The captain and lieutenant's room were the biggest on the ship. They were big enough to fit a bed, a dresser, and a little refrigerator. The other 3 rooms could only hold a bed. The walls shined because they were thick, metal frame of the ship. Jonas looked at himself and then the wall next to him, and then turned and looked at Tanya. "Hello, Lieutenant," Jonas said. "Do we have any word from the United States?" "Sir," she responded in a grim tone, "you know that they haven't responded in 2 years." Jonas looked down. "I pray to live out my final days hoping that we can return to Earth. Although I know that my hope is a dream that will never be reached, the only thing that keeps me going is the thought of walking on my native planet once more before I die." Tanya smiled and put her hand on his shoulder. "Have you looked outside today?" Jonas turned and a glowing planet was filling the entire window. "My God," he said. "It's so beautiful." His eyes lit up in amazement. The planet was so rich and alive. It had been 2 years since the last time they visited a planet. The last one, named Planet Plularami by Tanya, was given to the top-secret government agency. It was believed that it would be inhabited, but if that was true, Captain Jonas and his crew would return later. Jonas and Tanya walked through the hallway to a silver door on its end. It opened to the control room. 4 chairs were built in the floor. One was next to a table filled with medical equipment, one was next to a computer, one was by the window in the front. The last chair was in the center. Private Pell sat by the computer and Nurse Pamela sat by the table with the medical supplies. The colors in the room from the reflection of the planet made everything look blue and green. "Sir," Pell said, "we have a planet in landing range. Need permission to send her down." "We've been waiting for this chance for a long time," Jonas responded. "I decree the order of colonization. We will live on this planet until we are given permission to return home." Pell looked at him with his gray eyes. His hair was in a buzz cut and his uniform was black and silver from hanging out in the engineer room too long. Nurse Pamela smiled with her blonde, frizzy hair slowly turning white. Pell looked at the computer and began to type in a code. Suddenly, the alarm sounded and the lights turned off. Jonas ran to the radio as the red light came on. "Marcus! Marcus!" Jonas screamed. "What's going on down there?" "We have a down." Marcus's voice was interrupted by the static of the radio. "Marcus!" Jonas screamed. "Marcus!" The radio fell silent as the ship began to shake severely. Tanya ran to the window and her jaw dropped. The gravitational pull of the planet was so strong that it was tearing the ship apart. A loud explosion went off somewhere in the engineer room. Pamela fell to the ground as the floor cracked and caved. Her head hit the ground, instantly knocking her unconscious. Marshall hit his head off the computer, cutting his head as he fell to the crumbling floor. Jonas was next to Tanya now. He saw what shocked her. The planet was growing larger and larger, and the scenery grew clearer and clearer. Another large explosion blasted a hole in the ship. Jonas and Tanya fell motionless to the ground. The ship was crumbling as it fell. The force of their ship hitting the atmosphere of the planet was burning the ship's metal to pieces. The ship continued to fall. The glowing colors of blue and green slowly engulfed it. In a couple of minutes, the ship was gone. And of course, that was the intro, which led to everything. It's a pretty nice intro, no? I mean, I enjoyed it. I feel like it gets into the action right away, gets you going. I mean, personally, I had a lot of fun writing this story. It's still something I am fairly proud of despite not winning the contest. I mean, I hope you all enjoyed it as well, and maybe I will have to get back to writing more of these types of short stories and share them with you on this channel as well. Thanks for watching, liking, and subscribing, and remember, random
No one seems to
is
find the
good.
time to discover visions lost on their minds, searching and scrolling, avoiding the trolls and wishing for the seconds to start slowing. Reading the news while I drink delicious brews, pick and choose whether to debate this or discover a new food. Rap battles and video games, no reason to wait. Instead, I take action. My passions lead to tasks and distraction. A weekly live action attraction, utter satisfaction as you watch my random reactions. Random reactions.
This is a SunDried Tomatoes channel production by Anthony Iozzo. Follow, like, and subscribe, and check out other shows and a video version of the monthly podcast that you can also get audio-only versions most places that podcasts are found.